and record. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, if you were, well, I think everyone here is familiar with me, but let me just introduce myself. My name is Angela. I was a public school teacher for over 12 years. I left the school system in order to unschool my own children and to help other families embrace educational freedom. And this is truly the passion of my life, being able to help empower you as you walk with your children in freedom and joy. And so I'm really excited that you guys are here, and I'm excited to answer any questions that you may have. So if you like, you can just type your questions in the chat, and I will try to go through the questions, as many questions as I can. It's nice to see some faces. Hello. All right. So anyone, feel free to type your questions in the chat, or if you want, you can unmute yourself too. All right, so Amy asked, what is the difference between PAX Academy and the homeschool umbrella? That is a great question. So I live in Maryland. I'm based in Maryland. So in Maryland, you have two choices for homeschooling. You can either homeschool through the state, or you can homeschool through what's called an umbrella. Not every state has the option to have an umbrella, but in Maryland, we do. So when you homeschool through an umbrella, basically the umbrella takes the responsibility of supervising your homeschooling. Now, in addition to the homeschool umbrella, our homeschool umbrella is called Peaceful World Schoolers. In addition to that umbrella, I also have a private school, which is a little bit different than the umbrella. So the umbrella is for homeschoolers in Maryland. The private school is called PAX Academy, and that is open to people in other states as well. We are a registered and accredited private school. So students that are enrolled in PAX Academy are legally considered private school students as opposed to homeschool students in most states. And so they're able to receive their transcripts and their diploma from a registered, accredited private school. So it's a little bit different than just being like a straight homeschooler. So if you are in Maryland, you have the option. You can either do the umbrella or the private school. But if you live in another state, then PAX Academy would be the option for you.
Okay, I do live in the state of Maryland for now. My husband is a Marine, and this is where we're, stationed for the time being.
Okay.
So what do you recommend? Like, because I don't want to have to go through the hassle if I do want to stick to homeschooling of like switching to homeschool under the umbrella 2 PACs. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. So because you're not anticipating on staying here for the full year, if you just want to register in PAX Academy, you'll be able to be in PAX Academy regardless of where you are. I mean, we have students that are in other countries in PAX Academy. So yes.
Okay.
So that might be a better fit for you since you're not planning on sticking around here.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question. Great question. All right. Let me go through the next question here. Someone said, if my son has autism, how can I go about getting him into PAX Academy with an IEP? That is another great question. So when a child has autism, typically the things that I used to teach special education, a lot of the things that we see in an IEP simply are not necessary when they're in a homeschooling or unschooling environment. So for example, one of the accommodations that we frequently provide to students that have special needs or autism is we give them extended time, right? I'm sure your son probably has that in his IEP, that he's supposed to have extended time. Well, when you're homeschooled or you're unschooled, you don't need extended time because they have all the time in the world. It's not like they have to take a test in 60 minutes and that's all that they get. No, your kids can take as long or as slow as they need to learn whatever it is that they need to learn and whatever they're trying to master. So like I said, most of the things in the IEP really are not necessary. Another kind of thing to consider is the fact that when your children do go on to college or their career, they're not going to have an IEP. They're not going to have accommodations. So a lot of times it's helpful for students when they're in a homeschooling or unschooling environment, they're getting used to the real life, that they're not going to have a lot of these accommodations that they would have if they were in a public school in the real world. And then plus the added factor that most of the time they don't even need them. I can't tell you how many parents that I've talked to whose children have special needs, and they said that literally within the first week of having them be at home, the majority of their concerns that they were having with behavior and stuff like that, they just disappeared. So yeah, they don't need an IEP in homeschool or unschool.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Did that answer your question fully, Celeste?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So Guadalupe said, if I move to another country, will this work? So again, that depends on the country that you're going to. There are some countries where homeschooling is illegal. Like in Germany, homeschooling is illegal. No one is allowed to homeschool there, unfortunately. But there are many different countries where homeschooling is legal. And do you know what country you're thinking about moving to in particular? Guadalupe, do you know which country you're thinking about? Oh, I think she may not be here. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can help you. Guadalupe, do you know which country you'd be moving to?
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Sí, ahora sí. Yes.
Oh, I'm trying to, in 9 more months, we're moving to Mexico.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So in order to look up the laws in Mexico, are you moving there like permanently or just doing like an extended trip or?
No, permanently, yes.
Permanently. Okay. I do believe that homeschooling is illegal in Mexico. Let me share my screen real quick so I can show you guys. If ever you have any questions about the homeschool laws of wherever you're going, I always recommend going to hslda.org/legal. And so this one, they have it, you can look up the laws in your state. You just pick your state and they'll tell you all the different options for homeschooling in your state. They really break it down very clearly. And then they have another option here. So if you click on legal, they have another option for international. And actually, I just learned this not too long ago. They also have the whole website in Spanish. So if you speak Spanish or prefer it in Spanish, you can actually change their whole website. You can't see it on here, but it says Espanol behind there. And then you'll be able to see the whole website with instructions in Spanish. But here you click on international, and then you can say, find my country. And actually, we'll just click on the country here. So Mexico. So here they talk about the laws in Mexico, and it says, oh, okay, so homeschooling is legal. They have about 5,000 families that are homeschooling in Mexico, which is really cool. Oh. And so, yeah, so even if they're in another country, they can still register in PAX Academy. We are internationally accredited. So that means that they'll be able to get their diploma from a registered and accredited private school in the United States, which if you're planning on living internationally, a lot of places really look very favorably on that for the fact that they're able to have a diploma from the United States.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And actually, I'll share this in the chat with you so you can get to it. All right. For those of you that are kind of popping in late, if you have any questions, go ahead and you could just drop those in the chat and I'm working my way through each one. All right. Nancy asked, did unschooling use curriculum? So this is a question I get a lot. As unschoolers, do we use a curriculum? And I like to tell people, we don't use a curriculum. I like to say that the child is the curriculum. So rather than having someone else's agenda or someone else's standards be what is dictating the things that we learn, we really do have the child be the one to lead the way as far as what they're learning, when they're learning, where, why, and how. Now, that being said, there are some times when a child will absolutely choose to do their learning through following a curriculum. So if they're choosing that, that's totally fine. Many of you have seen on my TikTok this year, my daughter said that she wanted to take a math class where she's learning how they do math in Japan and India and Russia. And so with that, they're following their own curriculum, and she has a class with a teacher that she meets with once a week. But the difference is she's the one that's choosing it. So I'm not forcing her. Hi. I'm not forcing her. I'm not, making her say, okay, now you're going to sit down and do your math. It's totally something that is child-led. It's completely something that she is choosing on her own. And so, yes, do unschoolers use curriculum? They can. But again, it's something that the child is choosing, not something that the parents are forcing on the child. Celeste said, I live in California and want to enroll my son in PAX Academy. How do I go about doing the affidavit? So when you enroll in PAX Academy, I'll actually send you a list of instructions on how you fill out the affidavit. And I've met with a lot of my California families and just go through it with them one-on-one. And you'll see once you do it, it's very, very, very easy. I'll walk you through step-by-step the whole process.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
Yes. Do they require an IEP through PAX Academy? No. So when you're in a homeschooling or unschooling environment, they don't need to have an IEP. Amy said, after I submit the form to PG homeschool office, how soon will my son be able to start? So once Maryland typically asks for 2 weeks, 15 days, actually. They ask you to turn in the form 15 days prior to starting your homeschool program. That being said, once you've submitted the form, they don't need, it's not like you have to send them to school for 2 weeks and then pull them out. That really doesn't make any sense. So typically, as long as you've sent in the form, they're not mad if you start right away. I guess is the nicest way to put it. So they want you to give them at least 2 weeks in advance, but as soon as you start the form, you can start homeschooling. And what does a day-to-day look like for my child once they're in PAX Academy? So the day-to-day is going to look completely different for every child because every child is different. So the kinds of things that your child is going to be interested and wanting to learn are going to be completely different from the things that my child is interested and wanting to learn is going to be different from anyone else and what they're interested in learning. So it really does depend. There's not necessarily a typical day. We don't have, like classes or teachers or things like that. I do provide you with resources if you choose to use them, but the main goal is that for you to be celebrating and enjoying the life that you have with the people that you love the most. So I tell parents when you first start out with homeschooling or unschooling, the most important thing for you to do is to do something that you love every single day. And whatever your children are doing, you want to join them in the things that they're doing, join them in what they're enjoying and train your brain to look for the things that they're learning through all the stuff that they're doing naturally all day, every day. I think that's the hardest part, I think, is for us as parents to really get used to this idea that I don't have to force my kids to learn. Learning is something that kids do naturally, automatically, all day, every day, without force, without coercion, without any kind of stress. It's just something that happens naturally, and it's our job as parents to be looking for the learning that they're doing. So basically, imagine, what does the day-to-day look like? Imagine your favorite Saturday, imagine your best vacation ever, and it's like that every single day. All right. Did I answer your question, Amy?
I think she's gone.
Oh, okay. Also, Amy, I know that you are in Maryland. So if there's anyone else on here who also lives in Maryland, I do run a group called Peaceful World Schoolers of the DMV. We have a Facebook group. You're welcome to join that group. And every Friday, I plan field trips and events in the DMV area. So if you live in Maryland, DC, Virginia, or Pennsylvania, and you would like to join us for any of our field trips, or if you live anywhere else, you're welcome to join. But typically our field trips are kind of within that area. So yes, we would love to have you join us. And actually, let me send that. I'll put that in the chat as well. Hold on, I'll look it up later. All right, Jason said, what about vaccines? Can we opt out of them? And is it safe for them to not get them? Okay, so yes, you can opt out of vaccines. My children have not received any, and they have been completely fine. There are only 5 states that do not allow religious exemptions. Every other state does allow religious exemptions. And unfortunately, because of YouTube regulations, I'm not allowed to answer the second part about if it's safe for them to not get them, because I would like to have my YouTube channel not be banned, and I already have 2 strikes. So I can't answer that part, but what I will say is that my children have never been sick for longer than 24 hours. They've never had an ear infection. They've never had an antibiotic. They've never had anything, never had anything. And they also have never had any injections. So that's my children personally, but yeah, so hope that answers your question too. Okay, Amy said, what state is PAX Academy illegal again? So PAX Academy is legal in all 50 states, but depending on the different states, they have different requirements for homeschooling laws. So in most states, if you are registered in PAX Academy, then you're legally considered a private school student and not a homeschool student. There are some states, though, where they still consider you a homeschool student, so you would still have to meet their laws regarding testing and things like that. So states like New York and Pennsylvania, they're just really difficult. They have a lot of very strict regulations. You can still unschool in those states. I'll walk you through on how to navigate, filling out their evaluations and their quarterly reports and stuff that you have to do in those states that do require a lot more regulation than most. So homeschooling, like I said, homeschooling and unschooling is legal in all 50 states. All right, so Les said, how can I schedule a one-on-one for help with the affidavit? So I will send you a link for my Calendly. I do have one-on-one consultations. I have free 15 minutes appointments. And then if you feel like you will need more than 15 minutes, you can book a full educational consultation with me. And I will drop those links for you in the chat. All right, so that one is the
cool.
link for the 15-minute appointment. And then let me send the other one. So typically I recommend the full consultation for families that are either new to homeschooling or unschooling, or you feel like you have some, concerns that you would like to discuss in depth that will take longer than 15 minutes. Or if you have, any kind of fears or concerns or want me to walk you through something in particular, then you should book a full consultation. But if you feel like it's just a quick thing, book the 15-minute call, and that's great. Let me see. All right. And like I said, go ahead and keep dropping your questions in the comments. I'm going to make sure I get through all of them, at least as many as I can by 9. All right. Amy said, how do I make sure he is learning what he is supposed to learn for his age? Oh, that is such a great question. All right, Amy, I know you said that your baby is crying. That is okay. I hope that you're here to listen to this. If not, you can watch it on the recording going back. So this is a question, probably one of the most common questions that I get. How do you know that your child is learning? And in particular, they say, how do my child is learning what they're supposed to learn for their age? And this is a question that lets me know typically that there is some more deschooling that you have to do. So when we think about the first stage in transitioning to homeschool or unschool is a phrase that we call deschooling. And basically in the deschooling phase, you basically live as though school does not exist. And this phase is really important because that's a phase when we as parents really unlearn a lot of the stuff that we have learned about learning and what learning is supposed to look like. And so this is one of those questions. How do I know that he's learning what he's supposed to learn? So I would start by asking you questions like, number one, well, what is he supposed to learn? Who decided that that was what they were supposed to learn? Who said that they were supposed to learn that at this particular age? So those were kind of things that I started asking myself, like, who made up all these rules? Who said that they had to learn about the water cycle in first grade and the rock cycle in second grade? Like somebody just made all that up. There is no supposed to. And so I think that's one of the first kind of questions to really unravel and unwrap for yourself and wrestle through for yourself as a parent, to realize like there is no agenda. Like there's no agenda. There is no supposed to. There is no behind. Yeah, your child is a unique individual with a unique calling and unique skills and unique talents that they're going to use to contribute to the world. And those unique things are going to be cultivated in a unique way in their own unique timing. And they don't have to follow anyone else's agenda in order to get to where they're wanting to go at the end. So I hope that makes sense. And so when you do join PAX Academy, actually, I do have a student handbook. You asked if you'll be given some kind of guidance. So I do have a handbook that helps you to look for the learning that they're doing naturally. So I break down the 10 different subjects that people would typically teach in school. And then I show you how you can start to look for how those things show up naturally in their normal everyday life. And so that I'm really excited about that. I was working really hard on that. It's like over 60 pages worth of information for you to be able to use as you're kind of thinking through planning out your year, and also in different activities and things that you can do to help like really create an environment that's rich for learning and being able to expose your kids to all kinds of awesome things that they have tons of opportunities to be able to learn. All right, let me come through here. All right, Joanne said, can I make questions through the webinar? Yes, of course. That's why we're here. So if you have a question, just type it in the chat and I'm going to work my way through them and I will answer them. All right, Amy said, it's the same form, correct, that I need to submit to the county regardless of which you go with? Yep, it's the same form. Dr. Egypt, hey, it's so great to see you again. Any tips? Dr. Egypt was on my podcast a while back. I don't even know if I've had a chance to release. Did I release that podcast yet? I don't know. I've been so behind in my podcast. So if I've not released it yet, I'm sorry. I will. I promise. I'm just getting through it all. Said, any tips for organizing the day in terms of subjects or topics in a relaxed unschooling environment? I still value the need for some structure as it helps my family balance my family out. Yeah, it really depends again on, you know, like your family and your kids and finding the flow that's going to work best for you guys. Typically in my family, we don't have, again, we don't do any kind of like forced or coerced learning or anything like that, but we definitely do have a flow to our day. More so we have a flow to our week, I would say. But typically in our days, we normally start off our days with taking care of our responsibilities. We talk about how like we want to take care of our responsibilities first, and then we can, you know, have the rest of the day to kind of do the things that we love and whatever that may look like. So for us, you know, we have backyard chickens. So my daughter's, you know, wakes up and she takes care of the chickens, and she actually has some dog clients now for her dog business. So she's feeding the dogs, getting herself breakfast, getting dressed, all of that kind of, you know, just getting ready stuff. She also practices her math in the morning because that's something she likes to get away, like kind of finish that first thing in the morning. And yeah, and then after that, we just kind of go about our day. This year we're going to a co-op on Mondays. So that's kind of our, like I said, we structure more by the week, I guess. So we know that Mondays are like our co-op day. Tuesdays and Thursdays are kind of our chill at home days. My daughter is really a homebody and she's liking to be more at home as she's getting older. When she was younger, she liked to go out more, but now she's really liking to be home. On Wednesdays, we go swimming with a group of homeschoolers in our area at a local indoor pool. And then Fridays are field trip Fridays for us. So every Friday we're going somewhere kind of within like a 3-hour radius. So that's like our big day trip, day out kind of a thing. And then in between then, I'll like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll plan, you know, play dates or go to the park or, you know, random stuff like that too. But yeah, so that's kind of what our week looks like, I guess, for us. But yeah, I recommend like inviting your children to be a part of the planning process. Like talk to them and see what is something that you're really excited about. Where would you like to go? What would you like to learn about this year? And invite them to be a part of the kind of forward planning. And also have them be a part of the backward planning. So forward planning is when you're looking forward on your year and you're kind of planning in advance, like, hey, I know, for example, my son, he is like obsessed with police cars and trucks and dumpster trucks and trash trucks and all the trucks. He's 5. So because I know that that's something he's really interested in, I planned a field trip for us to go to the recycling plant, and we did like a reading with cops day that they had at the library. So we got to go and read books with cops at the library and stuff like that. So I plan things in advance that are around activities and stuff that he likes and that he enjoys. And then also the backwards planning part. So that's when you look back on your day and say, okay, what did we do today? What did my child learn? And so, yeah, both of those are important, the forward planning and the backward planning.
Excuse me.
That's all right. Joanna said how homeschooling impacts their hiring at work. That is a wonderful question. So it doesn't. It doesn't. In fact, I have found that a lot of people really, really, really like to work with homeschoolers, and especially with unschoolers, because unschoolers are highly intrinsically motivated because there is no one that is forcing them to do anything. Everything that they're doing is because they want to and they're choosing it. And so they really have developed this muscle of intrinsic motivation, and they are awesome at being able to go to universities. Colleges actually really like homeschoolers and unschoolers. They're able to get jobs very easily because they're not waiting until they're later to be able to be engaged in finding mentors and finding people that they can work with and learn from. They're doing it now as they're young. In fact, one of the first unschoolers that I met, he bought his first home when he was 11, and he remodeled the whole thing, sold it when he was 14. And when I was talking to him, he was like, I want to say he was like 19, and he had already bought and sold 3 other properties and was running a restaurant. And I was just like, what on earth? I mean, and all of that he was doing because he was working with people, like he was fascinated with construction. And so his next door neighbor just taught him how to do it. And so he did all the remodeling himself. That they did hire an electrician, but he worked with the professional electrician to do all the electrical work in his house. And he did all the plumbing, all the painting, all the carpentry stuff, like he did it all and he was 11. So, you know, when we give them opportunities to pursue the things that they love, it doesn't matter how old or how young that they are, they're learning. Many of you guys know my daughter too. She's 9 years old. She started her business. She takes care of dogs. She started her business 2 years ago when she was 7. So getting a job is, I often tell people getting a job for me really isn't the priority. I really want to teach my child not how to get a job, but how to create a job. I want them to learn the skills of being an entrepreneur, because the most successful people in our society are not the people that are working at the bottom of the totem pole. They're the people that are running businesses, that are investors, that are owning businesses and doing all of the stuff at the top. So I want to train my children to be able to be equipped to do that now. That's me personally. There's nothing wrong with working at the bottom. There's a place for that. I started my first job at Chipotle. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong or bad about doing that. They're learning valuable skills there too. But getting a job is not, it's not difficult. It's not a problem. And they have the skills to create a job, not just get a job. All right, Amneri said, I would love to homeschool, but I'm from NYC. Like you said, the laws are strict, but so is the living situation. Yes. How can a single parent not work in order to homeschool? So you asked the question perfectly. I am a single mom as well. I can't tell you exactly what your solution is going to be for that problem, but I would love to invite you to consider the fact that you can have it all. That is something that I have said to myself, like, over and over and over the last several years, that if this is something that really matters to you, you can find a solution. I truly believe that humans are infinitely capable of more than we could ever imagine or believe that we are capable of. You absolutely can do this. So personally, the way that I did it, when I first started, I had to work full-time out of the home. I was a public school teacher. And so I had to hire a nanny to come and take care of my child at home. It was a Hispanic lady who was a friend of mine, and she charged me way, way, way less than what I would have paid if I was sending her to like a daycare or something like that. I'm super grateful for her. So that was how I did it at the beginning, because as a single mom, I couldn't afford a lot. After that, I actually shifted. And when I first came home, the way that I created income for myself was by actually offering to take care of other people's kids. So that gave me the freedom to be able to take care of other people's children while also being with my own. And then from there, now I'm starting creating another business, like my own business. So I'm not necessarily taking care of other people's kids, but now I'm creating my own business with Pax Academy. And then I also do book publishing and editing. I think I've shared also on my TikTok. So I also I have a lot of different like passive income streams that have been helping as well. So for example, I have an AI bot that trades stocks for me, and that brings in like maybe like a couple thousand a month.
That's a
And
lot
it's
of money.
completely
All right.
passive income. So yeah, there are definitely options. Another thing that I did for a while too, when I couldn't afford childcare, was I would actually trade off with other single moms in my area. So there were 5 of us, and we each just kind of picked a day. And so that way we were only accountable for watching the kids 1 day a week. And then we had free childcare for all the other days a week. So if you can be creative and think outside the box, it is definitely possible. You can do it. You can absolutely homeschool as a single mom. Okay. Jenny said, I have to be the teacher or can be, oh, sorry, I don't know why this is, I can't see. Okay. Or can be a licensed one separately. Okay. So a lot of people, when they think about homeschooling, they assume that it's your job to be the teacher and you're going to teach your child. And actually, I tell people that my first big shift when I started homeschooling and unschooling was really getting the fact that I am not the teacher. Like I had to stop, take off my teacher hat and say, I am not the teacher of my child, but rather to view myself as the student of my child. That is my role. I am not her teacher at the end of the day. And so that was the first thing, was not viewing myself as the teacher, viewing myself as the student. And then the second shift that I had to make was viewing my child as the teacher and not viewing her as the student. And both of those shifts are really, really important, and they really do go together. But it's important to be able to understand that, because at the end of the day, all learning is self-directed anyway. I don't know if you have any experience trying to force someone to learn something that they don't want to learn about. It doesn't go very well. That was what I did for 12 years, was tried to force kids to learn things in school that they didn't care about. And some kids learned it and some kids didn't. So what was the difference between the two? I'm the same teacher. I'm teaching the same way in a classroom of, 30 or 42 students. Some kids learned and some kids didn't. I can't force anyone to learn anything. You cannot force your children to learn anything. At the end of the day, all of us will only learn what matters to us, and that's it. If it matters to them, they're going to learn it. If it doesn't matter to them, they're not going to learn it. So the key is looking for the things that matter to them,
Oh, what happened?
opportunities to do that, to learn more about that. So no,
They're
please
going
don't
away.
put yourself as. Oh, sorry, Judy,
They
did
can-
you need something? Okay, I don't know. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened. But anyways, yeah, so you don't have to view yourself as the teacher, and you can always outsource. I know a lot of people worry about that as they get to like high school, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to teach my kid algebra 2 or whatever? You can hire a private tutor if you need to. You can, I mean, there's so many free curriculum online if they want to use a free curriculum. Khan Academy is great. In fact, that's the same curriculum that we used as public school teachers in the school system. So they have access to the same tools and resources that we do. YouTube University is great. Watching videos on YouTube is a great way for kids to learn content area stuff. So there's tons of resources available, tons of free resources available. So you don't have to think or feel like it all has to be your responsibility to teach all the things. You don't. You don't have to be the expert in all the things, just like your child doesn't have to be the expert in all the things. Joanna said, I live in California and here the laws is very hard on the schools and the laws are getting really bad for parents' rights. That is very, very true. But the nice thing about California, I will say, is that California has really amazing homeschool laws. I know California is a little bit crazy in every other area, but in regards to homeschooling, they're incredible. It's one of the easiest states to homeschool in. So yeah, homeschooling in California is a wonderful, wonderful option. Guadalupe said, you'll guide all ages. Yes, I do. So I have helped support families homeschooling literally from kindergarten through 12th grade. And actually, I've even worked with adults. So if you're an adult and you don't have your high school diploma yet, I am happy to help you get that as well. So all ages, I work with all ages. I have also done private tutoring. So if you find that your child does want to have private tutoring a particular subject, feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to meet with you. And I do tutoring via Zoom as well. Joanna said, can I get paid by doing homeschooling? So yes, you can get paid from virtually anything. There are people who, oh my goodness, yeah, you literally could get paid from doing anything. So it's funny, I asked myself that same question. I remember thinking, when I left the classroom and was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for a living? I remember thinking and telling my dad, how can I make a living? Because my passion is in helping people not go to school. How can you earn income by telling parents that they can do it and you don't have to go to school? I'm trying to tell people you don't need me to do things. And how do you build a business or, by telling people that they don't need you? And yet here I am. So I'm really thankful. I mean, you truly can. You can create money from anything. There's so many things. So find something that you love and you can do it, whether that be like helping, take care of other people's kids, or if you want to start, creating content about homeschooling, go for it. You never know. All right, Amy said, what is the cost difference between packs and the umbrella? So the umbrella is, again, the umbrella is only for families that are in Maryland. That's $100 per family per year. And with that one, you do have to do an annual review and you are legally considered a homeschool student. PAX Academy costs only $350 a year for one student or $600 a year for a family of up to 5. Dr. Egypt said, we do similar daily structuring. The cool really helps for sure. Yep. Oh, yes. Jason said, do you teach your kids history? And if so, what do you teach? I know everything I learned was basically coded. I have 9-year-old with high functioning autism, just wondering what I could teach him for that subject. So we base everything off of our children's interests. And if you've been following or you scroll through my videos, you'll see, I mean, there was a period of time that both of my kids were really fascinated with the Titanic. I don't know why, they just were like super interested in the Titanic. And so we did like a deep dive into the Titanic for like a couple months. I mean, they watched like every documentary you could possibly think of. I just saw that they have like a Titanic reenactment thing like coming back here in the DC area. So my kids were scheduled to go and do that. So, I mean, we live in the DC area too. We're planning a trip to Colonial Williamsburg in a couple weeks. So actually, if you live close to Williamsburg, they have their homeschool week coming up. I want to say it's like the second and third week maybe in September. And so if you're able to go for homeschooling week, the tickets are like significantly discounted. So please go. And if you go with PAX Academy, you'll also be able to get the teacher entrance, So when you go as a teacher, you can get into a lot of the parks as well for free. So you can go to like Jamestown for free with your teacher ID and all those other kinds of things. So another benefit of being in PAX Academy. Amy said hours required daily. So again, this is that schoolish mindset, right? We have this mindset that learning has to look like sitting at a desk and doing English for 30 minutes and math for 30 minutes and science for 30 minutes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not like that at all. All of life is learning. All learning is valuable. All of it counts. It's not compartmentalized into these subject areas or workbooks or worksheets or anything like that. Truly, it's all day, every day. Learning happens all day, every day. It's not by the hour. Every moment that your kids are awake, they're learning. They're learning. Misty said, any advice regarding paperwork for teens who want to do dual enrollment in Michigan? Oh, okay, that would be a good question for like a one-on-one. But yeah, every community college has different requirements. So I would definitely talk with your local community college, and they'll be able to let you know the specific things that they're looking for to be able to qualify for their dual enrollment programs. Michigan is another state that has really amazing homeschool laws too. So you're very fortunate to be there. Connie said, I'm interested in getting my GED. Awesome. So at PAX Academy, we do even better than a GED. You'll actually be able to earn your diploma. So rather than getting the GED, you'll be able to get an actual diploma from a registered and accredited private school. And I can help you do that. So yeah, book a call with me and I'll talk you through how we can get you your diploma. Guadalupe said, I want to make sure I understand. PAX Academy will give you a package on what to teach your 5-year-old. So no, we don't tell you what to teach your kids because your children will tell you what to teach them and what they're wanting to learn about. So we have a self-directed learning philosophy, which means that your children are the ones that are in the driver's seat of their own education. They're the ones that are taking responsibility of what they want to learn, when they want to learn, how they want to learn, etc. And so, no, I can't give you a package on what to teach your kids because your child is the only person that knows the things that interest them and the things that they're passionate about. I will give you a package with resources that you can use, that you can share with your children, see what they like, see what they don't like. But I'm not going to tell you, okay, today you're going to teach your kid the water cycle. Tomorrow you're going to teach your kid the letter B. The next day you're going to teach them whatever. No, because life learning doesn't happen like that. I truly believe the child is the curriculum. So as long as you're following the interests and the passions of your child, they're going to be just fine. You don't need anyone else's agenda but theirs. Okay. Raphael said the $350 a year runs as a regular calendar or a school year. So the $350 a year runs from August 1st through July 31st of the following year. So it covers a full year beginning August 1st and ending on July 31st of the following year. Okay, Amy said, is there a first day of school or a last day of school? That's entirely up to you. Last week, actually, we just celebrated our not back to school day. We had a not back to school night and we got together with a bunch of other homeschooling families. We had pizza and cupcakes and a bunch of games and stuff and got together and was hanging out with everyone, and we just celebrated the fact that we are not going back to school. All the other kids are sitting trapped in a classroom, and we are at the beach and playing at the parks and going to museums and hanging out with our friends and enjoying our lives together. Something that the kids in school don't have the luxury of being able to do. So yeah, so I mean, if you want to create, you know, any kind of special you know, commemoration of that, you can. But again, all of life is learning for us. Like, we don't ever stop. We don't take a break from learning. We just, it happens all day, every day. So we don't have any particular, like, today is the first day of school, because we truly live our lives as though school doesn't exist. That's how we live personally. All right, Raphael said, what if my son wants to be a doctor? He needs special classes. Yes. So if your son wants to be a doctor, then they're going to show interest in things that are related to a doctor. So for example, when your son gets to, let's say he gets to high school and he already knows, I know I want to be a doctor. So in order to become a doctor, he's going to have to go to college. So in high school, then you'll start having those conversations with him saying, okay, you want to become a doctor. In order to get there, if that's your personal goal, what are the steps that you need to take in order to get there? So for example, in order to go there, you're probably going to have to learn some kind of a math, right? You're going to need to know algebra. You're going to need to know geometry. How do you want to learn those things? Do you want to take a class? Do you want to hire a private tutor? Do you want to try to do a placement test? Do you want to watch YouTube videos about it? Do you want to you know, take a class at the community college about it? I mean, there's so many different ways that they could learn the content that they want. And so again, the difference is that the child is the one that's choosing. So they absolutely can go on to be a doctor if that's what they want to be. All of those special classes will happen at college or in med school, but we want to prepare them for those things. So when they're ready for that and when they're choosing that, they're going to learn really quickly and they're going to learn really, really well. So before that, you don't really have to worry about, you know, any of the other things. Like, when it comes time, when they have a reason to learn it, they will. And actually, personally, my big concern was for math. That was the area when I first started learning about unschooling. I was an algebra 2 teacher. And I was like, there's no way that a kid is just going to pick up algebra through osmosis, because no one out here is graphing quadratic functions, right? Like, none of us are using this. How are they going to learn this? And every single unschooler that I interviewed, I always asked them, how long did it take you to learn all of the math that you needed from kindergarten through 12th grade? How long did it take you so that you were able to know all the math that you needed for college? And every single person that I've interviewed has told me it took them 6 months or less. Every single one. So unschoolers, when they needed to learn the math, they learned all of it. 13 years of math they learned in 6 months or less. So it is totally possible. We don't have to worry or stress about any of these subjects. When they need it, they're going to be motivated to learn it. And so they'll learn it really quickly and really well. Joanie said, do I need any certifications to do homeschooling? So that also depends on your state. In most states, they don't require any kind of certification. If you live in a state that does require a certification, it's not really a certification. The maximum requirement that a state requires, most states don't require anything. If you live in a state that does require something, they're going to require either a GED or a high school diploma. But like I said, if you need a high school diploma, we can also help you get that. All right, Connie said, what about sports in high school, like baseball? Do they go through their homeschool? So that is also something that that varies from county to county. Today I was talking with a mom who is homeschooling, and her kids are able to play in the high school sports teams and stuff. In Maryland, where I live, our state does not allow kids to participate in the local public school sports. So since my state does not allow homeschoolers to participate in public school sports, my kids all play in private sports. So my daughter is playing softball. My son is playing baseball. He's also in soccer. They've done martial arts. They've done gymnastics. They've done, swimming. I mean, virtually any sport that your kids would want to participate in at the high school level, they're going to be private leagues that they can also participate within. And I found that the private leagues are actually better than the high school leagues because they're typically the ones that are practicing year round, or they're traveling and they're really interacting competitively with other teams. So sports are not a problem. They absolutely can participate in sports. So whether your county allows for it or not, they still can play sports. Amy says, let's say he goes back to school, will you be able to get a transcript? Yes. So if they are in PAX Academy, that's one of the things that they get from being a student with us. They will be able to have an official transcript, and I'll be able to help them. So if they decide one day that they want to go back to school, they can use that official transcript to go back and transfer in any credits that they've earned. Guadalupe said, freedom, yes. Amy said, I'm paranoid of getting in trouble. Oh, no worries. Yes, you don't have to be worried about being, getting in trouble or anything like that. Like I said, homeschooling in Maryland is very, very easy. And especially when you're going through a private school, you're not even considered a homeschooler. So yeah, they leave you alone. They leave you alone. Courtney said, I work from home. I work from home and I'm a first-year homeschooling mom. At this point, we just began and my daughter wants to watch YouTube and play Pexel Pets. I know everyone's schedule is different, but how would you incorporate learning from her current interests into her day while I'm working? Oh my goodness. I can so relate to that. YouTube has been a big thing in my family too, especially because I'm a work from home mom also. And so a lot of times that's what my kids are enjoying and what they're engaged in. My first challenge would be to look for the learning that she's doing and whatever she's doing, whether it's watching YouTube or even playing Pixel Pets. She is learning valuable things even from those activities. But you can also, like, strewing is also another really big thing. I find that a lot of times if I just have stuff out and available, they're willing to do other things too. So for example, like I'll have art supplies out, or I'll put, right now our basement is kind of a disaster because we just had to remodel. I don't know if you guys saw the whole sewage problem that we had a couple months ago, but my basement has been under construction. And so yeah, our playroom isn't as nicely organized as I like for it to be. But yeah, you can strew like, books, or have different like books that are laying out for them, or art supplies, or if you have like a backyard that they can go play in safely, they can do that. We have a fenced in backyard, so my kids are just like, go play outside, and they'll go play outside for a bit. And also inviting them to be a part of what they can with you. So a lot of times, like my daughter, she'll say, if I'm working on my computer, I'll say, hey, do you want to come and do your work with me? And she'll say, yeah. And so she'll come and I'll put on like ABC. So she has a little Chromebook thing that the county gave all the kids. And so she'll sit on her Chromebook next to me and she'll play ABC, or my son will like do bingo numbers or something on the computer. So they're on a computer, but they're with me and we're next to each other. So yeah, that's some of the things that we do. But yeah, they're learning all the time. They're learning all the time. Don't feel bad if they're like spending time watching YouTube or doing stuff that may not look as educational as maybe we are kind of indoctrinated to think that educational stuff is supposed to look. Misty said, my 9-year-old doesn't want to read, but wants to do things that require reading. I'm struggling to get him interested in the gateway that reading provides to all of his interests. Okay, so this is a really fascinating comment. My 9-year-old doesn't want to read, but wants to do things that require reading. Can you help me understand what you mean by that? Misty? Misty, are you there? I don't know if you're there.
Hello.
Hey, can you explain what you mean by that a little bit more?
Yes, he's interested in like trying to grow things, but he wants to do things himself. So I would need to give him instructions, or even like a seed packet has instructions, and he wants to build things and follow the instructions, but he can't read the instructions. And he likes math, but the math problems, in order to tell him what they want him to do, it requires reading it to him, and he doesn't like when I read it to him. He wants to do it, but he can't do all the words.
Okay, so he's wanting to learn how to read, but he's struggling with reading?
No, he doesn't want to read.
Oh, okay. Okay, does he know how to read?
Some things, but he's resisted so successfully that it's very hit and miss.
Okay. Was he in school before?
He was in kindergarten when shutdown happened, and we tried going back to a local school for a couple months, and it didn't go well, and we've just been home, and I'm trying to just kind of undo some of the damage that was done there
Yeah.
and help him kind of find his spot.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, but is he like physically able to read? He just doesn't want to?
Correct.
Okay. So that, are you physically able to do the dishes?
Oh yeah.
Are there days that sometimes you don't want to?
Every day.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I never want to do the dishes, right? So just because we're physically able to do something doesn't necessarily mean that we want to do it all the time, and that's okay. I think if we can like remove some of the judgment from it, it takes away a lot of the pressure. And I don't know if you've maybe had a conversation with him about like why he doesn't want to read. But
I've tried, and he just kind of zones out and doesn't really want to talk about it, and then says, well, I'm just not that good at it. And I tell him that he just needs to practice, and that it's okay if he only wants to practice things that he actually likes, like trucks and farms and building instructions and stuff. And he sounds interested, but then when it's time to do it, he's just like, and he wants to just play.
Yeah, I try to make it, especially if they're like resistant to it. It sounds like if he's expressing to you that he feels like it's something that he's not good at, it makes sense that he would be resisting to it. And then like sometimes when we try to force them to do it, it just kind of makes it that much worse. You know what I mean? I had a I had a conversation with a mom when I was first learning unschooling. I was like, I didn't want to help my daughter with reading, you know, like I really wanted her to just do it on her own. And then I had an unschooling mentor, and she asked me, she was like, if you asked for help for something, like if she asked for help in anything else, like what would you do? And I was like, well, I would just help her. You know, she asked me for help with, you know, braiding her hair or like any other skill, like I would just help her, you know. It wouldn't be this, oh, you got to try it on your own, you know, like do it on your own. And and I realized that I was like, oh, she's right. Like if it was anything else and they asked for help, I would just help her, you know, if I could. I mean, there are sometimes, of course, when you're busy or you can't, you know, you're on a phone call or you can't put it away or whatever, then yes. But in general, like if they're asking for help, like I just would do it. And then eventually they're not going to ask for help anymore. Another thing that I did too was like sometimes like I would make mistakes when we were reading. So like we would my daughter and I would often read books together like every night before we go to bed. So normally like she would read a page and then I would read a page, or sometimes at the very beginning when she couldn't read that much, like she would get tired from reading, she would read a paragraph and I would read a paragraph, or we would do like even sentence by sentence and just kind of like she would read until she would stop, and then when she would stop then I would pick up reading, and then I would stop and then she would pick up reading, so kind of that like popcorn reading. But doing that I think helped to take away a lot of the pressure, so we were able to practice in like a fun way. And then when I would make a mistake, I just would like correct myself, you know, and just show her, or she would even correct me, and she really liked to correct me when I made a mistake in reading. But it helped to kind of just let her know like it's okay, everyone makes mistakes, it's okay to make mistakes when we're reading, and the purpose is not to be perfect. That's something that really is drilled in kids' heads when they're in a school or structured and learning environment like that they have to be able to do it right, and there's a lot of shame when they can't do it right. And so I think that's part of our like unschooling and deschooling work that we have to do, is like being able to let them let go of that stuff. Like it is okay to make a mistake. A mistake means you're learning something new, and that's an awesome thing. You know, it is okay to not be perfect at all the things, right? And so yeah, just try to focus on having him have really positive experiences with reading as much as possible. And if he asks for help, I would just help him. Eventually he's not going to ask for help anymore.
Yeah, I kind of figured. That's why I haven't pushed it that hard up till now, but it's like, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of just waiting for him to have the moment.
Yeah, he will. And they will, they do, they figure it out and they get it, and he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. But in the meantime, it sounds like he's needing a little bit more hand holding in this area, because it seems like it's an area that he has some insecurities around. And
Yeah.
and sometimes we can, like we could just step in and kind of be that buffer for him. Like when he feels ready to do it on his own, he will. Like they don't want to have mommy and daddy reading to them till they're 18, 20 years old. Like it won't be like that. There will come a day where he'll be like, stop, like I want to do it myself. Just like with our kids, right? When I don't know if your kids did this too, when they were learning how to like get dressed or zip up their coats or whatever. And it was like, I just would want to help you because if I do it, it's just faster, right? But then eventually they get to the point where they're like, no, I want to do it, But it does it for some kids, it takes some time for them to feel comfortable enough and confident enough to say, okay, I got this. I don't need this help anymore. But if they're asking for help, I would give it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because my daughters were totally different. They were ready to do stuff theirself by like 1.5 and 2 and telling me, I can do it, mom. I can do it, mom. And he's just different. He's doing his own thing.
Yep. They do. And they all do their own thing and they all learn at their own pace. And yeah, everyone is different. And in the end, when they're adults, no one's going to know if he mastered reading at 5 or 15, like they figure it out eventually. He'll get it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
All right. Maria said, how are the kids evaluated or graded? So yes, this is another one of those unschooling or deschooling questions that we have to know. And let me answer this question by asking you a question. I think kind of at the root of this is asking like, how do you know that your kids are actually learning, or how do you know that they're actually advancing? So when you're, Maria, are you on still? Oh, I see Maria here. Hey, Maria.
Yes.
Hey, okay. So, all right. So when your children were growing up, like at what age did they start going to school?
5.
When they were 5?
Yes.
Okay. So before they went to kindergarten, did they know any of their colors?
Some of them.
Okay. Did they know any of their shapes?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. Did they know how to count or any numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they know any letters?
Not all, but some.
They knew some. Okay. So before they ever went to school, they knew their colors, they knew some shapes, they knew some numbers and some letters, right?
Yes.
How did they learn that if they weren't in school?
I would teach them.
Okay. How did you teach them?
Just like going over it.
Did you make them like do worksheets and stuff?
No, we would just basically get a notebook and I would write it for them, or I would just like show them what was what on there.
Yeah, so you lived your life and it was stuff that showed up in your life and they would learn it. You'd say, give me the red shirt or give me the blue pants. And then they would learn the colors, right? Or you would read something, right? So as they were going about their day, as they were going about their life, you taught them certain things. Or rather, I should say, they learned certain things from you, right?
Yes.
Did you have to evaluate them or grade them to know if they were learning?
No.
Okay. I guess I could argue you did evaluate them. So how did you evaluate? Like, how did you know that they knew that stuff?
I guess by asking them.
Yeah, you talked to them, right? You knew them. So you didn't have to evaluate like, oh, how many letters does my kid know? No, you had conversations with them and you could see that they were growing. You could see that they were learning, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to do any formal testing. You didn't do any quizzes.
No.
No, you didn't give them any grades for, shapes or colors.
No, I would just congratulate them. Oh, you're doing good. Like that.
Exactly. So that's what you do just for the rest of their life, right? Like kids don't have to be evaluated and tested. And actually, this is one of the biggest differences between schooling and unschooling, because in school, there are so many kids that the only way for a kid to demonstrate that they know something is by taking a test, right? But in homeschool, when we're with our kids, I don't have to give my child a test on something. I talk with her every day. I know the things that she knows because she shares with me the stuff that she's watched on YouTube, or we go to the museums together and we learn about stuff together, right? So when you're sharing life with someone, you can see what they're learning. You can see the gaps in their learning. And everyone is going to have gaps, whether they're in school or out of school, but you don't have to test them or evaluate them in order to do that. Now, when it comes to grades, so grades are not really necessary. I know it's 9 o'clock and I want to try to see if I can get to the rest of these questions at the end, but so grades are not really necessary. When they do get to high school, that's really the only point in time when grades matter. Prior to high school, no one is looking at their grades. Not a single job or college is going to ask to see your child's elementary school transcript. No one is going to do that. All right. So the only grades that really matter are the grades that they have on their transcript when they get to high school. That's it. When it comes to grading and evaluating as unschoolers, I'll speak for what we do in PAX Academy. So in PAX Academy, I help you convert your life experience into academic credit. So for example, the other day I was working with a mom who she actually dropped out of high school and she was working to get her GED. She needed to have a science credit and an English credit and some other credits too. So I asked her about her life. So what kinds of things are you interested in? And she shared with me that she is absolutely passionate about gardening. She loves gardening. It's something she's been doing for years. She's like considers herself to be pretty much like an expert in this area. Like she's really mastered gardening. And so as a result, I'm like, okay, cool. You're interested in this thing called gardening, right? Gardening has a scientific name. It's called horticulture. And so we put horticulture on her transcript. This is something that she's really passionate about and excited about. And so I asked her, again, do the self-evaluation. If you had to give yourself a grade for this subject of horticulture, what grade would you give yourself? And she was like, oh, this is something I know inside and out like the back of my hand. I'd give myself an A. Awesome. Like this is something she's passionate about. She's skilled in. She does it a lot. Great. So she gave herself an A and that was it. So you can do that when you homeschool. And actually the self-evaluation piece is really, really, really an important component of homeschooling, allowing our children to be able to reflect on the work, whatever they know or whatever they don't know, and to be able to honestly evaluate what they know and say, okay, I'm in high school. I really like, trying to think of another example. Oh, I was working with a boy the other day that he was really interested in robotics and animation, right? So he's going to use that as his technology credit. And so because it's something he's excited and passionate about, he's giving himself an A. So yeah, you can just do that. All right. Someone said, is universal ESA strictly an Arizona thing? If not, could you tell me a little bit more about it? Okay. So actually, I just got approved to be an ESA vendor in Arizona. Yay. So if you're in Arizona and you want to register in PAX Academy, you can count us and use your ESA funds. But yes, that is a strictly Arizona thing. I wish that it was everywhere. And I'm so jealous that families in Arizona have ESA fund. So ESA is basically the government in Arizona gives homeschoolers money for homeschooling. It's like a couple $1,000s per kid per year, which is pretty, I think it's like $1,500 per kid per quarter. And that's amazing. I wish that we had that here. All right, Amy said switching from umbrella to PAX, an easy transition. Yes, it is a very easy transition. So if you want to start with the umbrella and then switch to PAX, you can. How do I prove my kid did homeschooling if we went back from the umbrella to public school? So whenever they go back to public school, they literally just put them back in based on their age. So if they were like, I don't know, so my daughter's 9, right? If I were to send her back to school, they would just put her in 4th grade because that's how old she is. That's kind of how they do it. Yeah, they just kind of put them where they're supposed to be based on their age. Amy said once they get to high school with PAX, they'll get a little more guidance for testing. Yeah, once they get to high school in PAX Academy, then we'll have like a more formal conversation where we'll talk about their long-term plans, and then we'll make a plan for strategically how do they want to get there and what would that look like. So lots of different things that they can do, and I'll go into more depth about how they can do that. I know that it's 9 o'clock, so I'm going to cut this off now, but I want to thank you guys so much for being here tonight. If you have additional questions, you can book a 15-minute call with me, like I said. or you can book the full educational consultation. I'll be more than happy to meet with you one-on-one and discuss stuff more in depth. This is the link for PAX Academy if you're interested in learning more about us. Our website is a work in progress, so there's still some more stuff I'm going to add on there. But we are more than happy to have you. You can join at any point throughout the year. I know there are a couple people on here as well that also were looking to adults, parents that were looking to either get their GED or high school diploma. So if that is you and you do not have your high school diploma yet, I'm more than happy to help you do that. Yeah, you guys had some really, really awesome questions. This is so great. I hope that this evening was a valuable investment of your time. I deeply appreciate all that you guys are doing for being willing to think and live and learn outside the box. I know this is it can be challenging to do something that's different than the norm, but I promise you, you will not regret spending extra time with your kids. And so thank you guys so much for putting in the work to create something new and to invest this valuable time in your children. You guys are truly making a difference that's going to have a ripple effect for generations to come. And I'm so thankful for each of you, and I'm glad you guys are here. Yes, thank you guys so much for coming. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.